and welcome back to another episode of Teattime Truth Talk with your host, Alicia, and my father,
Rev Rich.
And as always, we have another wonderful situation for you, topics for you today. But before we get into that, as always,
remember to subscribe, like, share. As always, hit that bell so you know when another video drops, whether it's Teattime Truth Talk or any of the Meditation Mondays or any other videos, or even our business videos that may drop. You want to be notified right away.
And before we get started with our topic, I've gotten a lot of messages from a bunch of different people asking me about last week's talk and an update on it. So if you haven't seen the last week episode, or if you have, I'll give you a recap. It was talking about bringing friends back. And like always, like I said, not only do we give these advice to you guys and to help you and other people, but we're human too. I'm still a teen adult. I'm only 19. And he's an adult as well, and we go through these situations as well. Doesn't matter what age. It can come in all shapes and sizes, ages, races, whatever. But for the situation that happened last week, it was talking about wanting to bring a friend back, and how do we do it, and what are some tips and ideas of how to do it back. And a lot of you asked me if my situation had progressed, or what kind of tips and actions did I take. Well, for me, I would like to say, yes, it did work. My friend and I that I was trying to reconnect with, we did end up reconnecting. We're on a talking basis right now. We're not like hopping and seeing each other super excited. We text each other every so often and laugh and giggle, whatever. But one of the tips I did take was take action. That's one of the big things we did talk about with that last week's episode was take action, where if you want something to happen, you got to take the first step. You can go back and forth and hint around all you want, but nothing's going to get done unless you take that step. So for all of you who ask, yes, it did work for me. I hope it works out for all of you who needs that help, and hopefully you go through those go through the talk and help yourself out as well. So with that being said, today's topic is called Just Friends. So the situation goes like this. My best friend and I have been friends for 5 years. We do everything together. But just recently they decided to tell me how they feel and want to be more than friends. Luckily I had to go, so I couldn't answer them right away. I don't want to lose my best friend, but I don't see them as more than a friend. What should I do?
All right, well, just like you said, first thing is take action. And it is important because, I just did a talk, my Wisdom Wednesday talk that will be posted on Wednesday. We'll be talking about action and how even taking any action and failing forward. So that's the first thing. The first action you're really going to take is make a decision. You want to decide whether your feelings mimic this person or is it that you want to be friends and continue that friendship. Once you make that decision, then you've got to elaborate that to the person, because we're going to say many a times, I used the term last week. It's funny that I knew a term that my daughter didn't know, which was FOMO, or the fear of missing out.
Listen.
But that's literally it. We get these things thrown at us and we're afraid to make a decision because we're afraid of what we're going to miss out on. If I don't do this, even though it doesn't feel right, even though I'm moving from a place of fear, then I need to do this. And then when the outcome happens, or the consequence, because we know that every action has a reaction, or every motion has some kind of commotion, as they say. Because of it, we take an action out of fear and then wonder why the response is the same fear, or that things start to fall apart. Whereas if you take the time to truly figure out who you want to be, maybe you had the same feelings for that person, but you were afraid to take an action. But if you strongly decide that you want to remain friends, then that's the action you must take, is explain to that person, hey, we've been friends for 5 years. I see you more as, we all see the cliches on the movies of brother or the friend zone or whatever, but you've got to realize that emotions aren't always the same for each person. And you also have to realize that when you do tell this to this person, that person may react in a certain way, which you were hoping to avoid. But again, that's taking action versus fear versus um, how do I say, taking action versus fear rather than taking action from a place of your own intuition that says, this is the right action, this is that, but know that I can only control me. I can't control their emotions. Now, they may take it from you, from their perspective, as you are turning them down, you're insulting them, they're whatever. That's their reaction, and you can't control it. Just know that you've done the right thing for you. You've never told him anything or her anything other than that. This is how I feel at this moment. That person can only react to where they come from, and that's a whole other talk on how that works. So
we'll get there. But yeah, I've actually been on both sides of the spectrum, because not only are we on the side of receiving the person saying, I like you, I've also been on that part where I've told somebody I liked you. And let me tell you, both sides are scary with a capital S. Like, it is scary on both sides, because from this point of view where someone has told me that they liked me and wanted to be more than friends, and I didn't see them that way, it was hard, because part of it was the fact of, are they going to react negatively? And like he said, the only person we can control is ourselves. So if they do react negatively and don't want to talk to you, then maybe at that moment in time, they probably need to let off some steam. But if they end up not liking you and not talking to you, then maybe that wasn't a true friend from the begin with, in my perspective at least. Because I've had people who've told me they like me, and I told them I don't like them that way. I do like them as just a friend. And then they get upset and they're angry, and then they go off popping the mouth and whatever. And it's like, well, I can't fix that. I can't change how I feel. But then on the other side as well, you also got to realize that if you do, first of all, be proud that you were brave enough to say how you feel, because there's a lot of people who will go all the way around the world telling everybody they like this one person, and the one person will never know till this very day. And then later on find out they could have been together if they just took that action. But like I said, if you do take that action and they do say, hey, I really just see you as a friend, realize that they're not the only person in the world. As they always say, there's plenty of fish in the sea. There really is. That one person at that moment you might have feelings for, but you know what? The way I think of it when it comes to liking guys or liking girls is, that one person who wasn't right now is one more person closer to the person you're meant to be with. I always take it that way, because then you think, okay, I'm not hooked on that one person, because if he wasn't meant to be with me at this moment in time, I have someone out there waiting for me to come find them, or they come find me, whichever way works. I'm that fairy tale cliche person. I'm going to stick with that way, right? So if they do in that moment say they don't have feelings for you, accept it. Be okay with it. Would you rather be upset and get angry and lose your best friend, or would you rather be like, okay, just as long as we don't make things awkward, because that's another problem that we'll talk about, was being awkward. But just as long as you don't make things awkward and you can go back to being friends, you still have your best friend. And maybe down the line, maybe they will have feelings for you and you guys will get together. Or you both will have feelings for each other and you just stay friends forever. Now, with the awkward situation as well is, you have to realize that it may be awkward at first, but if you talk about it, because that's another thing, is it will happen, it'll get awkward, and then nobody talks about it, and then everyone's in their head. It's like, well, I don't want to do it this way because then it might trigger them to like me again, or I don't want to do it this way because then it might make them hate me because I like them, and it's a whole mess. Let me tell you, I have been in every single one of those situations. It's a whole mess. But once you just sit down and be like, listen, I want to talk about what happened. And because they're your best friend, they should be opening to listening and conversating. You should be able to just talk through it and help each other understand and come to some agreement or just a better understanding of each other. And sometimes that actually brings your friendship a lot closer. So I know I just threw a whole lot at you, but it is true, because you got to think of not only the one side, but all aspects of this one topic.
Well, for me, the problem here is that you threw all that at them. And I guarantee you somebody's sitting out there right now going, see, that's why I don't want to get involved with nobody, because look at all that complications and all that thing. But I'll give you two things that truly will change that for you if you're willing to look at it that way. And in fact, it was a conversation I had a couple of days ago with someone who made me realize the difference in the acronyms. So they say fear stands for false evidence appearing real. Okay, so that's what it means. So basically, you're looking at a situation, but you're creating stories in your head. Well, if I don't tell him or I don't tell her, this is going to happen. Or if I do tell her or don't tell him, this is what's going to happen. But then I told them, but now this is what they're thinking because they haven't spoken to me in a day, not realizing because now I'm telling some more stories in my head. So I'm creating these false evidence appearing real that has nothing to do with it. There's actually a story of a young lady who got with a guy and they were talking and texting back and forth, and they were texting all day, every day for about a week, and then the texts stopped. And this girl became so depressed, almost suicidal, because she said this guy doesn't like her. She started creating all these stories in her head. Then she went to her dad and tried to talk to him, and same thing, all the thing. And it turned out at the end of the whole story, the guy regretfully was in a car accident. And during the accident, his cell phone and other property had fallen out of the car because the car had tumbled. Was in the hospital, came out of the hospital, he was okay.
Wow.
But had no way to contact her, but because she created the stories in her head. So someone else gave me another acronym for fear, and it's face everything and rise. So when we are afraid of something, when we're afraid to tell somebody something, we tell somebody, the only thing you can think of is that if you're willing to face everything and rise, and you know my philosophy on failing forward, if you face it and do what you got to do, you're going to rise, because either way, you're going to be enlightened to, hey, this guy or girl really liked me, or hey, this girl or guy didn't like me but wants to remain friends. I've learned something today. And this works for everything. It's not just in this scenario, but anything you do. Realize you may lose something because you'd rather face, allow the false evidence to convince you, whether it's society programming it into you, the media programming it into you, that this is the way I should act, and you end up losing something that's good in your life. Or you face what's inside of you and say, I know what I have to do. Face everything, because now you'll rise, because no matter what the answer is, you've become one step better in that thing.
So do we just not think that way and follow that acronym? Because again, like I said, from all like the little scenarios, like you said, it goes around, and a lot of people are like, this is why I don't get involved. Mm-hmm. But when we are in that situation and our mind is being clouded with all these stories, how do we just let that go?
There is no way to really let it go. And you've heard me say this in talks all the time. You know, is it easy? No. But is it worth it? Yes. Because there is work to be done. But we have to realize when we're thinking negative, we have to ask ourselves, is it the stories we're telling ourselves? You know how many people have told me in their lifetime that, oh, these are my thoughts, and then come back later and admit that they were influenced by something else. You know, I tell you, and I've told my wife this many times, you can't say I love myself and then tell me 20 different things that are wrong with you. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Because to truly love ourselves, that's why I never say, I said, I'm willing to love myself, but I know there are things that I have to deal with my looks, with my whatever, that I feel. Now, this doesn't share, and that's my own opinion. It's not anybody else's. This is how I feel about myself. And I know those are the things I need to work on. So when these thoughts come in, I mean, there are all kinds of tricks and stuff you can use. Some people say, you know, I'm studying for my bachelor's degree now, you know, that in metaphysics. And one of the techniques they use is as soon as a negative thought comes in, start saying to yourself, cancel, cancel, cancel. Almost like turning the switch off. Now, it works for the immediate, but until you deal with what it is, because so your best friend, you went to your best friend and said, I like you, I want to take this relationship to another level. They tell you no. Now, you know how that movie that show just says, take you down the rabbit hole? I'm about to take you down that rabbit hole. Okay.
Oh boy.
But you got to look at it this way. If that person tells you no and everything inside of you feels destroyed, you've got to ask yourself why. Was there something inside of you that feels that by not having this person's love, you're less than who you truly are? Is there a part of you that needs them to like you because you can't like yourself without somebody else saying, I'm good? You know, it's kind of like that effect of somebody telling you, it's a whole, like I said, this is definitely a whole other lesson on shame that's from the past and stuff. But I know as an adult, sometimes when things don't go right, maybe in a job sense, or maybe somebody who knows business or knows something tells you you're not doing enough or something, and you immediately go into this place of, well, that's not right. That's not this. This is not that. Trust me, I do it at work all the time. They can tell you, Rich, I told you an inch to the left, and that will make me feel like my whole world just fell apart.
Sometimes.
Exactly.
Sometimes.
But I know for me that comes from a place of shame from way back when somebody probably told me you're not good enough, or somebody told me you're never going to amount to anything. So there's something inside of me that I have to work on. And that's why I say the only person you can control is you, because when you tell that person that opposite of what they expected, and they start acting some kind of different way, you've got to realize that that person is hurting from something deeper than just your conversation. They'll lash out to you because you're now the easy person to blame. It's easy to blame everybody else.
Mm-hmm. It's harder to blame yourself.
Exactly. We talk about that in radical self-responsibility, is that when you can walk into a situation and say, this is the part I played in it, that situation, no matter how traumatic it is, will begin to shrink. Because it's not doing anything to you. It happened in your past. But if you keep giving it fuel in your mind and keep saying it was that person, it was that person, it was that person, you know, but when you take responsibility for it and say, hey, you know what? It is what it is. It was an incident. It was a situation. It was it. So again, coming back to your topic, you told that person whatever, or that person told you whatever, and you heard the opposite of what you wanted to hear, and your reaction comes from a place of whatever. Take a time to find out what that place is. What is it coming from? What do you feel like you're lacking? Because you know what? That person may not love you the way they are, but I guarantee you, if you use the 80-20 rule they call Pareto's principle,
mm-hmm.
that 20% you're looking at from that one person, you're missing the 80% of the other people that love you around you, that are fulfilling that need of love, and are filling that need of appreciation, or filling that need of, how do I say, accolades, we'll say. Like, you need to feel, there's a part of you that feels like if somebody's not telling you you're great all the time, that you're not great. You know, in corporate America, I used to hate it because the best bosses are the ones you never heard from. Because that tells you you're doing a good job. Because if you hear from them, you know you're in trouble. Exactly. And it works a lot like that. People need sometimes to be sitting there going, oh, you're doing a good job. Oh, you're great, whatever. I've told my boss, and he made fun of me one time because I had to write a self-evaluation. I said, I let my work talk for me. He goes, you can't say that. I said, why not? I said, am I doing anything wrong? He goes, no. I said, am I doing a good job? Yeah. So obviously, since we don't talk, it was the work. So you've got to find that place inside of you that's causing you to react that way. Because once you know that, then you can now face everything and rise. Because you know that there may be, you already understand, and you already know that if this person tells you anything else, that you may react in a certain way, and you know where it's coming from, which gives you power. And if it's giving you power, and this person says exactly what you said, then you know you're going to feel it. You're going to have that quick emotion and be like, you know what? It wasn't him. I know where this is coming from. Let me take a quick pause, look around me, look at all these people I have, all these accolades I have, look at all this stuff I have. I am not lacking. I am prosperous in what I have. And this situation is literally that. It's a situation. And guess what? I still have a best friend.
So is it the same way, because we did talk a little bit more on asking the person, is it the same way of giving the response of no?
Yep, because think about it. How many people will not give the right response because they're afraid of hurting the other person's feeling?
Okay.
So it's the same thing. Your fear could either be start telling yourself stories about how this person's going to act, and if he acts this way, is he ever going to be my best friend, blah, blah, blah. Or you sit there and say, hey, I'm going to face this. I'm going to tell him how I feel. And I know in my heart that the only person that can control is me. And if he stops being my best friend, that's a choice he made. And yes, there's a part of me that's going to be emotional because I'm going to miss him. But then I'm going to take a pause and say, look at all the other friends I still have. Look at all the family I still have. Look at all the people that still care about me. And guess what? You now learn something called compassion. Because now your anger toward that person is now going to turn into compassion of, well, sooner or later, I hope that he heals whatever it is inside of him or her. And that will bring you back together. Because it could be just a momentary hurt right now.
Okay. Well, I think that definitely answered both sides. So if you are on either side of the spectrum, you got a 2-for-1 kind of deal today. So like he said, for the one who has responded no, please do take the action. Like he said, do the FEAR acronym. What is it?
Face everything.
There we go. I had it. But yes, so do tell the person, he, she, they, whichever, how you feel, whether you don't feel the same way or you do. And again, don't let those stories cloud your judgment, and just take that, like I said, just take that action, and don't be afraid to accept how the outcome happens, because like he says, they may get mad and upset. You want to hope that they'll calm down and come around. But at the end of the day, that 80-20 rule, you're focusing on the 20, you need to focus on the 80 and focus on the people that do love you and care about you as well. And like I said, since this was a 2-for-1 kind of deal today, if you are on the spectrum of asking that person and letting them know how you feel, don't be afraid to do that either. Again, like he said, if they give you the opposite response, it is you can only control yourself. So you decide whether you want to let that consume you and let that hurt you, or you learn a lesson from it and accept that you still have a best friend in the end. And with that, as always, we love you. There's nothing we can do about it. And we'll see you next time.